Hi everyone. I hope you're having a really great Tuesday. Um, I'm making this video. I'm laughing at myself. I'm having one of those therapist moment days. And I think I probably would have been TikTok famous had that been a thing 15 years ago because the stories that I have of the shit show that I have lived through being a child psychologist, working in Post-Katrina New Orleans, being a forensic psychologist, working in prisons, doing crazy child custody evaluations, dealing with the darker side of humanity, and then being thrust into the world of the light worker and intuitives and psychic mediums and all that kind of stuff. It has been a roller coaster of the past 20 years. And the last seven, definitely I did not see that coming. And I don't think any of us saw what was coming with regard to the healing process. But I've been going through, as many of us have, major physical transformation and major spiritual transformation. And that's right for my age and developmentally what I'm supposed to be doing in this lifetime. I did not expect in the last 3 years for a full blown shamanic initiation process, which is probably still going on. And I probably missed some things and wasn't fully capable of going all the way in some aspects. But I know that the universe is trying to be patient with me about some certain things. But I'm making this video because I'm having a moment about my book that I wrote. And I'm going to be just very clear. The reason why I don't market my first book is because that was really more of an exercise for me to wrap up my first round of healing with my feminine energy, which I had been connected to actually through a 20-year cycle with the planet Venus. So that's what I've been doing for 20 years. I'm going to say again, 20 years of learning about the feminine energy in various different ways, and not necessarily from a spiritual perspective. That's been a recent thing. So I learned about the feminine energy in non-spiritual ways, which is probably going to be helpful to a lot of people. But I wrote the book for my own healing and processing. It was very important in 2018, 2019 when the call to start to travel and to do the things that many people are doing now started to happen. And I needed to pull together my knowledge. I needed to pull together and try to make sense of all the different things I had been doing. I needed to try to make sense of my psychic awakening and to go through that process. And I fully felt at that particular time when that was going on that I was about to meet someone. And that when I met that person, it would be the nice closure for this segment of my career. And then I'd be moving on to something else. Turns out that something else was a deep dive into the darkness of the feminine energy and doing a crap ton of other healing work and being initiated into some other healing modalities, which I don't think collectively many people are necessarily ready for. But I understand that I've always been a little bit ahead of my time, and there are changes coming. So I've been going through that healing process and coming out of it. But I think my concern, and the reason why I'm making this video, is I've never had so many clients in my practice come in thinking that with whatever I've written or whatever anyone has written is a how-to manual. And I think that just speaks to the level of fear collectively that is going on in many parts of the world, and the United States is feeling it the most out of all my clients about what is going on. So when we get scared, we want someone to tell us what to do. And I do remember, that phase of the healing process. It's you've regressed to being that little girl who has had a lot of relational trauma, and you're really seeking and craving a parental figure to come and tell you what to do because you feel scared on the inside, but you don't really know what's going on. And it's a trauma response. But the thing is, it's not the purpose of therapy. And I think a lot of therapists who work from a relational standpoint were very used to playing the parent role. Right? And certainly if we're intuitive, we're probably and have always been channeling in ways that are popular. We talk about it now, but we've been our souls have been doing this for so long. We didn't even realize that was what we were doing when we were working with clients. Many of us have a lot of psychic abilities. I'm very claircognizant. I know things without knowing where they come from, and that got me into trouble early in my career. But now you come in and you've read something in my book, and I ask you how it goes, and you're either not doing that thing in the book, or you haven't had your own experience, and so there's nothing to discuss, and there's nothing to talk about. And so I'm just clarifying that the book is my experience, and this is not everyone's path. My spiritual journey was very much triggered out of my relationships. I very strongly believe on a collective level that the changing in relationships and the way that we date and the way we get married and all that kind of stuff is part of a karmic healing process for many people. But it's not that path for everyone, right? So this is a very feminine approach. Relationships are a feminine energy scenario. Most of our spiritual practices, especially as it pertains to Buddhism, or if we are interested in Jesus or the father figures or the male ascended masters, are a path of walking individually out on a hero's journey because something happened. It's usually a breakup. Something happens, you go on a journey, you learn some things, you heal, and then you come back, right? But the path of relationships as the conduit for continuously up-leveling is not something we understand very well. So you could very much be on a spiritual journey in everyday life and just think that you have bad luck with relationships. It's, most of the time you can see it in someone's astrology chart. So the learning of that is a little bit more of the intuitive side of things, and learning and opening up your psychic skills and learning intuition and kind of learning all of those other things. But the biggest issue is, I think this is where therapists get concerned, is developmentally, anything related to the heart should have been mastered before your Saturn return. Our mental template of relationships is set between ages 15 and 21. And then energetically, the heart chakra is supposed to be active in our 20s. We are supposed to master relationships. That's different than getting married. But we are supposed to master that energy when we are young. Most of us aren't doing that because we keep getting told to focus on our career when we are in our 20s. And I personally made that decision, but my career ended up studying relationships, so I probably followed my soul's calling without getting married, right? So there's always a way. And I think that that's something collectively we're going to have a hard time with starting next year when the energy shifts again, that if you're on a path to learning about relationships of the heart or intuition or anything divine feminine, it almost doesn't matter which decisions that you make. It's not about getting married or not getting married anymore. It's kind of more of the relationship with the universe to say, I'm willing to learn it in this way. And the universe will say, great. You want to do it the single person way and do it through your dating life? That's an option. And someone else can say, no, I want to get married and live a more traditional life. That's my culture. This is what I want to do. The universe will say, okay, well, then you're going to learn your lessons over in that direction. So there's change coming, and that change is scary. When we have more freedom, or we're preparing for a time where there might be more freedom, that feels chaotic. And when we have chaos, that's when we take a book that someone else has written. We resonate with their story because we've been struggling so much with our relationships. We want to find someone who's gone through the struggle themselves. We resonate with it, and then we want to know exactly what they did, because if you just follow everything that they did, you will be fine too. There is no way, based on what I have seen now in the past 3 years healing spiritually, which is not in this first book, the spiritual healing component, that you can follow my path. Will my path become something that's more and more available? Yes, it's going to be something that is taught when people wake up and realize that they, may have been triggered by a past life husband, or that this is a lifetime where they're not supposed to be dealing with marriage, because there's other things the soul wants to learn, and you've been married for 1,001 times in past life and have had many, many children, but you've always stood behind your spouse, right? So it's a very individualized process, which is the reason why I have chapters on basic astrology and human design and gene keys and, intuitive guidance and all that kind of stuff, because those are tools where you begin to learn to trust yourself. Right? Therapy is not a modality where you're supposed to be coming in like you go to a surgeon's office, where they look at you and say, you have this, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, don't worry about it, I'm going to take care of you. That's not what therapy is. Therapy is a relationship. So therapy is the conduit for learning how to manage the energy of the heart chakra. Just like you learn to manage the energy of the heart chakra through your own connection on a yoga mat, therapy becomes the conduit of learning how to manage the heart chakra with another human being. Right? So you don't come to therapy with someone like me if you're just interested in the mental stuff. That's called CBT. It's called DBT. There are books. There's other therapists that specialize in that, and that was never my interest. Dealing with the energy of the heart space and dealing with more of the feminine, issues of sexuality, intimacy, creativity, all that kind of stuff has always been an interest of mine, and I've always wanted to do it in very non-traditional kinds of ways. So because we're dealing with an energy that has no rules to it, my experience is likely to be different from yours. So the purpose of therapy in that context is for you to bring your experiences, for us to have a conversation. And if I say something, it's an opportunity for you to push back. This is supposed to be about human emotions. It's supposed to be about collaboration. It's supposed to be about working through something. And I can tell you that with the number of clients that are not coming in on a regular basis, because they're just coming in when things are bad, has increased. Right? So even the basic understanding of what therapy is has completely gone out the window. And my experience, because there is a chapter, I think it's chapter 9 or 10, where I talk about we're going into holistic times, but we still need psychotherapy. Anytime I have been in psychotherapy myself, it's been a 2-year commitment. Yoga and exploring yoga has been a 10-year commitment. Working in the intuitive realm has been a newer commitment, but every day I meditate or I do something. The healing of my physical body to me has been the hardest parts, and that's related to trauma in this lifetime. All of this is work. You can't go to your therapist and expect them to fix you. What you can do, if you're in that state where you feel like you are falling apart so much and you feel like you need a mommy, is to be honest that you need some nurturing, and to be honest with the therapist and to find out what their modality is, to figure out if it's the right person for you. And because I have walked a very difficult healing journey and coming out of a 20-year cycle with Venus, I've been starting to get very, very clear that right now, if you are married and if you have a child, I may not be the right therapist for you because my countertransference and my own emotions related to the need to sacrifice those very human desires to do this healing work to get to where I am today, my emotions are likely interfering with my ability to be of service to you. And part of the difference of being a licensed professional versus a wellness professional that doesn't have any credentials is I follow an ethics code, and if I can't be of assistance to you because of my own emotions and my own process, I have to make referrals to you or for you. And somehow we've kind of forgotten this, so I'm bringing this back up as a teaching point, but also to point out that if you're getting hurt by my feedback to you in 1 or 2 sessions that's suggesting I may not be the right person for you, or I tell you I'm so physically sensitive right now that if you are physically ill, I can feel it in my body, and you get angry with me, all we are doing is replaying your relationships, probably with one of your parents, right? That's what therapy is. That's what therapy was designed to do. Most people now are going to therapy because they desire something called wisdom coaching or some kind of spiritual coaching where they want to be told. And they just want the information and to walk away with information. And I think there's a place for wisdom coaching, and I certainly do a lot of it. But I will be separating it more and more and more over the next few months from my therapy practice, because that's not what therapy is. Therapy is about you doing the work. And if there's anything that I have learned in my time as a psychologist, is how much Americans, because this is not worldwide, how much Americans avoid doing actual work to make themselves better. I'm making this video in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Most people don't know the history of psychology in Buenos Aires. And Buenos Aires has the highest per capita number of therapists per person, and it's needed. You know, the history of the last 100 years in Argentina has been largely traumatic. That, coupled with the religious history, means that many people keep things very, very private. So the things that you do in public and the things that you do in private are, you're basically living double lives. And that was always the reason why there was therapy around. That was the reason why therapy was around in New York, when you could not be authentic and you could not, be who you are, privately, outside, and all that kind of stuff, because there was certain etiquette and protocol. Or you were in danger by your government, right? The Argentine government has not been kind to its people all the time. So when someone goes to therapy here, they're in it for a long time. They're doing the work, but they're also doing the work in a traditional therapeutic construct, because they don't have access up until recently to other things. This is the first time in human history where you have the choice to decide how you want to heal. All my book did was talk about all the different things I tried when I was trying to heal a broken heart. All the different things I tried. It's not a how-to. It's not saying you have to go to a psychic medium and do your Gene Keys chart and do your yoga and do your meditation, all these things. It's very much my astrology chart. I'm a little bit of Gemini. I jump around a lot. I don't go deep. It's who I am. Right? But that's probably not who you are. And so we're struggling simply because we are not focusing on our own journeys, And we're not committing to a modality. So it doesn't matter which direction you go in. I say this every day. What is your spiritual path? What are you interested in? What do you want to learn? What feels right? Because to me, as someone who's done so many different things and been exposed to so much, I can help you with whatever path that you are interested in, but I can't choose the path for you. Right? So I feel like I stand there almost like, in The Wizard of Oz when she's trying to decide which yellow brick road to go down, and we're standing there and I'm like waiting for you. And I don't know which character, if I'm fairy godmother, whatever, I don't know which character I am, but I'm standing next to you and I'm like, you can go walk the path of Buddhism over here, or you can walk the path of healing your Christian ancestry over here, because there's a lot of that going on in the United States. Or you're a yoga person and you want to work on your physical body, so you're going yoga. Or you don't want to do anything spiritual, you want to do traditional psychotherapy, or you want to go do psychedelics. I don't care which one of those paths we decide to go down, but you have to decide which path interests you. I've also, in my book I talk about being spiritual but not religious, but have I been exposed to all the religions? Yes, I have. I went to a Jewish university. I was exposed to Catholicism. I had a very Christian awakening experience that was related to healing my family lineage. I've explored a little bit of past life trauma related to Hinduism, and then I just started exploring, connections to the Middle East and Islamic background. For me, as it's supposed to be, I have zero judgment. But as a therapist, we get frustrated when you're standing there with so many options and you're too scared to choose to walk a path. And until you begin to walk a path, most of us can't help you. So what's happening is, instead of going to someone, a person, many of us are choosing to begin to walk a psychedelics path, or do ayahuasca, or do those kinds of things, because we believe, or we've been conditioned now to think that the problem is something we don't have access to, or that it could be fixed if we ingest something and go on a psychedelic trip. The truth of the matter is, that's just one path, and if it interests you, then you can walk that path. I've done all of my healing work without the use of plant medicine or psychedelics, other than essential oils and maybe Sinaga, which is a Brazilian plant that comes in the form of eye drops. But that's because it's related to my own family lineage, which has a lot of Christianity in it that I didn't know anything about. So if I can go on a journey just through meditation, I do not need to take psychedelics at this particular point. Some of you just might be interested in it, and so that's the path that you're going to walk. But you can't come to me or anyone like me and just stand there. And if you've been standing there for a while, then we can start exploring why there's fear, but most people aren't willing to do that. Most people, when they are getting stuck, stop coming to session. And that's when we know you're just not ready. And there is no commitment. Because until you commit to something, there is no point. There is no point. Because even if you have a spontaneous healing, which I completely, honestly, with all of my travel and spiritual work, I completely believe is possible. Even if you have a spontaneous healing, your soul has been preparing for that moment. It's not spontaneous according to your soul plan. And that's hard for people to understand. It's hard for people to see, sense, and feel, that's hard to understand that your soul is already chosen these experiences for learning purposes. But now, for the first time in history, you don't have the excuse that whatever it is that you need to heal doesn't exist, or that you're being told, like my father was, that you have to go do traditional psychiatry because someone wouldn't support you going to see a shaman in South America. I have a feeling right now working with a shaman is far more popular than going to a traditional psychiatrist. You have options now. And that's the exciting part, but it's also the scary part. So I'm going to encourage you, whether you're a client of mine or not, if the real issue is fear, I'm going to encourage you to go into your therapist and say, you know what, I don't really want to talk about my date. I don't want to talk about what's going on in my life. I don't want to talk about my friend drama. I'm actually feeling really scared because I don't know what's going on in the world and I don't know what path to take. Can we talk about fear? If you do that, then real therapy will start. If you don't do that, it's gonna be like 2 years of talking about your ex-husband being a narcissist before you wake up enough to realize that the talking about the ex-husband being a narcissist is really a substitute for you facing your own fear and your own spiritual journey, where the universe got rid of your husband for a reason. So I hope that this video has been helpful to you. If you have any questions, please let me know. But the number one thing that stops anyone on their path, it's just simply fear. But you have options now to figure out how you're going to get past the fear. So I hope you do, and you start this process this week. Ciao.